Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I am your host, James Parker. If you have any comments here, we're about to talk about the possibility of legalized gambling here in Texas. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. And I'm going to ask you some of the same questions I'm asking my next guest. Amara Durham's back on the James Show. She's an addiction expert. And it's not just drugs that we have to worry about. Gambling addiction. Is there a concern that legalized gambling would lead to more gambling addictions in Texas?
It's a great question. You know, in Louisiana, when they legalized gambling, they recognized that addiction to gambling would increase and actually earmarked a portion of every dollar that is gambled toward a gambling addiction treatment. So if we look at that causation correlation, there certainly seems to be a direct relationship. And it's a problem. Whether it's legalized or not, it's happening. $1.37 billion this year, $1.2 billion last year, legally waged. That does not include your office pool or your peer-to-peer wagers. It's out there, and so we need to be really smart about it.
How much of it is creating new gambling addicts versus dragging them out of the black market?
Well, it's all about access. So you don't have to go to a casino and gamble anymore. You don't even have to have a bookie and find one. All you do is roll over in bed, grab your phone, and log into an app. And there you have it. So we are increasing access. Therefore, we are increasing the numbers of those who are gambling at all hours. And we're having kids who are starting younger and younger. And just like alcohol addiction or drug addiction, when that brain isn't fully developed and we start triggering chemicals in the brain.
Dopamine.
Reward centers. Yes, the big D. Well, the big D isn't just for Dallas, it's for dopamine. And so the earlier we trigger that, and at any age we trigger it, we want more.
Well, I learned
we feel good.
I learned it's just the same way that the slot machines make that sound. They copied the slot machine ding for video games. So when Mario gets a coin, it's the same sort of dopamine hit. It's like, hey, something good happened. Oh, I just got a coin. This is great. I'm kind of winning. And there's a little bit of a dopamine hit that we all got as kids because we would just be goofing around and dopamine. So whenever people talk about getting a dopamine hit, this is kind of the noise that I hear in my head now. And I think that's a great metaphor for it. You just get a little bit of a positive reinforcement that makes you want to continue.
Yeah, and then take that into social media, and these young people who are on social media are getting the same algorithmic approach to the dopamine hit. And then we again legalize gambling. We've got even leagues who are in this game because they realize how much money there is to be made. And so we make it really easy to access. And it doesn't really tie to ages because everyone can find a workaround. And so if you feel the surge of dopamine and it's thrilling and you want to feel it again, you keep going. And when you lose, it doesn't feel good. So we chase that feel good and we start gambling and we start losing. And that cycle to chase keeps going until it really can be life-changing in a very negative way. Well,
look, you made some good points about we all have access to gambling, or at least that dopamine chase on even phone apps now. So if access is universal, why not open up some casinos?
So the statistics out there show that the greater and easier the access, then the greater the numbers. And so there is a corollary there. Opening casinos is a political argument for revenue streams, much like we talk about the taxes on cigarettes or alcohol. So there's a political argument. I care much more about the clients I end up seeing where their gambling has become so problematic and nobody knows because it's so secretive. You don't smell it on somebody's breath, and you might not be looking at their bank accounts. So you can be married to someone, you can have a child, you can have a friend who can become destitute because they have gambled and there was no way to know. And it gets so bad that we create other mental health issues that can lead to a variety of really significant consequences and up into including taking one's life. because it does feel hopeless because it is a disease that is so lonely. This is not something you do with others when it's problematic.
Do you ever go gambling?
I personally work too hard for my money, so that's not my jam. But I certainly don't judge anyone who chooses to do it. It's about being wise and how much can you gamble that you can afford to lose and walk away without having to chase. It's all about not being preoccupied with gambling. It's not gambling to the point where it's interfering with your relationships or your job or any of your pastimes that you used to really enjoy. And if you're going to gamble, don't do it to escape problems or relieve your feelings. And if you notice that you are starting to make deals with yourself, I'm only going to spend this much, I'm only going to go this many days a week, and you can't hold to those deals that you make yourself, it's time to take a look at how and why you're gambling.
So what do you do if to rehab someone off of gambling? Because, if you're on cocaine or heroin, they'll put you in a facility to sort of detox you. And you're listed as an addiction expert. Do you treat people with gambling addiction? What do you do?
It's so challenging to treat someone with a gambling addiction because so often the access is through the phone or the internet. And it is very difficult to have someone show the self-restraint to be able to use technology in appropriate fashion while not accessing any of their online or telephonic ways to gamble. It is tough. There is Gambling Anonymous. There are treatment programs. There are medications that will change the dopamine receptors to the high that one gets from gambling, or for that matter, also alcohol or drugs or any other risk-reward type substance that's used maladaptively. So between medication, treatment, and self-discipline and support groups through community organizations such as Gambling Anonymous, you can treat gambling addiction. Willingness is dispositive of success, and that's for any addiction.
Amara Durham, thank you for being on the James Show. You can find her at amaradurham.com. Thank you very much.
Thanks, James. Take good care.
All right, now she's making some great points there. Gambling or legalized gambling will probably expand the number of people who have gambling problems. Okay, I get that. Even knowing that, I think it's more important that for the rest of us who can gamble responsibly, that we be allowed to have the freedom to choose whether or not we can go to a casino within our own state. I'm still pro-gambling. However, I'm going to play some audio from a woman here in Dallas who is not. But where are you? Are you in favor of legalized gambling in Dallas, in Texas? Does it have to be done right? What about these destination resorts? Or what about just opening it up statewide? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'll try and explain why I'm pro legalized gambling coming up next on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. How do you feel about legalized gambling in Texas? This is something that comes up, and there is just a murderer's row, just a crackerjack team. There's like a magnificent seven of lobbyists in Austin right now. And they're hired by most of them the same people that own the Mavericks now, or 60% of the Mavericks, whatever that may be. But the Adelson Group, they're down there in Austin right now. They're whining, they're dining, they're charming your elected representatives, trying to get a bill that would allow them to ply their craft here in the great state of Texas. Now, I am very much pro legal gambling. And I'm not going to argue with you that you just heard an addiction expert say that it's going to expand gambling problems. People who have gambling problems, now they have this new access, now that they have this new avenue, now they have, great, shiny, opulent casinos that they can go into. It's just another entry point for people's addictions to blow up in their face. I understand that. I'm not saying it's going to result in better gambling behaviors. I'm going to say freedom is more important than shutting off gambling to the 98, 99% of the population that can handle it, because 1% to 2% of us can't. It's the same way I feel about most of these other vice crimes. It's the same reason I'm the only guy on WBAP and might be your only friend, period, that thinks all drugs should be illegal. I know that we're probably going to have a higher incidence of people getting addicted to drugs. But number one, freedom. Freedom far outweighs that. Number two is you got to think about the trade-offs. It's not that, well, we outlaw gambling in Texas and so we don't have any gambling addicts. No, we still do. We still do. The ones that are hardcore compulsive gamblers, some of them end up not in a casino or not in some booth with a slot machine. Some of them end up in, dare I say, mafia-controlled games. You drive gambling underground like that, it doesn't become safer. It doesn't reduce crime as much as it just sort of displaces crime. Do we all get that? I don't think we do. Well, we have a lot of people who hear the idea of legal gambling, and this was great because I didn't expect to get this. When we sent producer Garrett, down to the Mavericks protest that they had on Saturday, one of the questions we asked each one of the people was, do you think this is some sort of subplot? Do you think this is some sort of gimmick to try and get legalized gambling? Like they could hold the Mavericks over the head of the Austin and say, hey, we're going to move this basketball team out of here if you don't give us legalized gambling. And some of them said, yeah. Some of them said, I don't know. But this one woman finally said something that I've been wanting to talk to people like this.
Do you guys feel this trade was done to tank the team and move it to Las Vegas?
I don't know, but I will say this. I don't like the thought of casinos in Texas because I truly believe it would bring crime, and that's not what we need, and that's not what we stand for in this Lone Star State. So,
yeah, bring crime. So she's talking about this criminal element that comes with casinos, and I don't know if that's necessarily they go hand in hand, because what you've done is by outlawing gambling, you've created a lot of crime. You've created, if me and Garrett were going to bet on the game, technically that's illegal. If we were going to have an office pool for the March Madness tournament that's coming up in just a few weeks, kind of illegal, right? So you've made a whole lot of things illegal. When a bunch of buddies get together and they play poker all night on a Saturday night, technically that's illegal. It doesn't reduce crime. Now, there's some visible criminal elements that I think people associate with gambling that I'm not sure would even be as big of a problem around here. When you go to Las Vegas, you see, what do you see around Vegas? You see a bunch of working girls. It's the damnedest thing. Be a 40-something white guy that's walking around Las Vegas by yourself and see how many women want to party with you. And it ain't because you're handsome, or at least in my case. But here's one of the arguments that I'm kind of on the fence about. It's a solid argument, but this not one of my bedrocks, is when people go straight north out of here and they cross the line into Oklahoma and they get to that WinStar Casino in Durant, like right across the line. Thousands of cars there, and almost all of them have Texas plates. Look at all the money that is running across the Red River to fill the coffers of the people of Oklahoma. Why can't we just keep that money here? So there's a cost there. Now, I don't think you should decide whether or not you have the right to do something on whether or not it's profitable for the fellas down in Austin. But you have to admit that would be a net positive. That's another trade-off. You outlaw gambling here, you're pushing tax revenue away. You're also pushing tax revenue from the guys that still gamble, whether it's from a poker table or, there's underground slot rooms and people who like the machines. None of that's getting taxed. So you're losing a lot here. And so the trade-offs is what I think people who disagree with me are missing. And I think you have good intentions. I think you people want what's best for Texas. I just, I think you're wrong on this gambling issue. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Dave in Burleson, you're on WBAP. What do you think about legal gambling in Texas?
I think they should absolutely legalize it in the state of Texas. And if they're going to use the argument that it's going to expand, increase the amount of people that are going to be gambling and all that, can't control it. Hell, you might as well take out 3/4 of the grocery stores in Texas, because how many of us are overweight? It's all about personal accountability.
Oh, yeah, dude, you could make the same argument for Pop-Tarts. You could probably make the same argument about Golden Corral. Yeah. A lot of people can't handle it. The dopamine hit that they get from going back to the Mega Bar. He's absolutely right. That's a great metaphor. Thank you, Dave in Burleson. All right, if you got any comments, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Jeremy Rosenthal, my legal expert, will talk about the judges block and what Doge is doing. Lainey Wilson fans, you can be part of our contest to win tickets to go see her at Dickies Arena September 19th. Text the word WORLD because it's her Whirlwind World Tour to 800-288-9227. WORLD to 800-288-9227. That'll get you in the contest to win some Lainey Wilson tickets September 19th. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, let's go. All right, hang on just a second before we get to my next guest, Jeremy Rosenthal, because I want to take a call here and read a couple of comments. And then, since he's my lawyer buddy, this will be a nice setup for him as well. We've been talking about the specter of legalized gambling in Texas. David over here on Facebook says, why do you keep pushing the gambling thing? It's not going to pass. Is this something you're told to push or your choice? It's 100% my choice. No one's told me to push that. In fact, I think most people, if they were telling me to push something, they would tell me the opposite. I think I disagree with most of my listeners. This is sort of a dangerous subject for me to tread around because, look, I'm on WBAP, and I know where the listeners stand on a lot of these issues, and I know where I disagree with them, and it's not comfortable. I don't like doing it. And why do I keep pushing it? I don't talk about legalized gambling very often, but I think legalized gambling, the positives outweigh the negatives. And I just have a default switch on the side of freedom. Like, you have to convince me more than, well, some people are going to get addicted to it before that's a status that should make it illegal. You could say the same thing about Coors Light, yet we all agree that should be legal. Or do we? Tom in Frisco, you're on WBAP. What do you think about legalized gambling?
Hey, so you know what? I lived in Colorado when they legalized it, and I don't know where they are today, but it was a really great move. It was only certain towns, only certain locations, because as you pointed out, there's the moral issue. That,
okay. No, I didn't know that. So one of the bills that's being pushed or being floated by the lobbyists is making it not make gambling legalized across the state. You just have destination locations, like these little pockets where it's legal.
And so, like you said, it goes across the border to Oklahoma. It's not really Oklahoma; it's the reservation. And so yeah, let's keep some of that money in Texas, and that's fair. And again, it comes down to personal responsibility. What kind of self-control do you have? But the other issue, kind of not really about gambling, but you said you're for it because of your points of freedom. Well, define freedom.
Freedom. So if I'm not initiating the use of force against anybody else, that's freedom. That's where my definition of freedom stops.
So freedom. Okay. So this is a much bigger issue, and I'd love a show on this. Freedom is, so basically you can do what you want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else?
Pretty much, yeah. If it doesn't break their bones or pick their pocket.
See, and that to me is where kind of why the world is screwed up, right?
Why is that?
Well, because people think freedom means I can do whatever I want, and really freedom is not that. Freedom is actually, I am free to pursue my potential, to fulfill my potential, to do what I'm made to do. I'm free from things that hold me back from my God-given end, rather than I'm allowed to do whatever the hell I want. That's license. Real freedom is freedom from something, not freedom to do something.
Yeah, I don't get that. How does that apply to statecraft? So you would outlaw Coors Light and Kit Kats because they would impede your fullest potential?
No. It's not. That's not the state's job. That's not the state's job. So, as I said, it doesn't really apply to the discussion on gambling. It's a kind of a totally different tangent.
All right, semantic game. So, do you disagree with legalized gambling or not?
No, I'm all for it. Again, as long as it's controlled like that, and locations, and it's got to have its checks and balances. That's fine.
Nah.
But again, it's
all right. Well, you and I have a different definition of freedom then. I think my my definition of freedom matches up with the ethos of the founding fathers in the Constitution.
Okay, and that's fine. I think my definition of freedom matches up with God's definition of freedom. And that's a bigger. A higher bar.
All right, so I won't put a blackjack table in the middle of your church. How about that? Thank you very much, Tom in Frisco. So with that, let's go to my guest, Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. As far as the bills that are being floated or the proposals that are being floated for legalized gambling, some people are telling me I shouldn't be talking about this on the show because there's zero chance this could pass anyway. Now, where do you think this is going to end up at the end of the session?
I don't know, but to that last caller's point, look, I love this topic. I think I think the debate is a healthy one. And when I was the prosecutor, what we said to juries were, your rights stop at my nose, which is another way of saying that you have freedom to do whatever you want in this country. But that stops once you hurt someone else or once you do something that we decide against public policy, right? Am I allowed to dump my motor oil in the creek? Is that freedom, right? Well, no, it's not, because at that point, I'm damaging somebody else's ability to enjoy.
Yeah, you're involuntarily imposing a cost on a third party. Yes. Correct.
Exactly. So now, from that standpoint, when it comes to gambling, I don't know how this plays out. These are money questions between you, me, and the wall. I think if the money interests are in the right places, then I think that magically Texas sees, we don't think that the vices are too bad here. Right. I mean, I'm a cynic. So I don't know if this is going to pass or get legs or not. But I think that it's like anything else. I think that with whatever appropriate regulations that need to be put in place, I think it could generate profit and revenue and enhance our state's wealth relative to other states, but it comes with the downside.
Well,
I think that
go ahead. Let me push back a little bit on this is just all based on the moneyed interest, because who are the moneyed interest that's keeping it illegal? Who's the moneyed interest that keeps me from buying bourbon on a Sunday? Like, how are those being propped up? I think there's a genuine, like, ideological, I don't know if it's conservative or whatever streak that's just anti-vice.
I think it's a really, really complicated debate, and I think that if you go ever watch Texas, our legislature's in session right now, and I would encourage any Texan to go and watch how crazy it is and how dysfunctional it is, and you will be shocked and amazed at how we do anything, and how that we get any law passed. But you have in the Texas House, you have over 100 Texas House members, and you're going to get so many really different points of view based on what part of the state that they're from, whether they're from a rural part of the state, whether they're from an urban part or a suburban part. You're going to get a lot of different views. Look at the marijuana debate, a fascinating one. Several years ago, the Texas House overwhelmingly bipartisan passed legislation to reduce marijuana possession to a traffic ticket. The Texas legislature, or the Senate, didn't even take it up. So Dan Patrick effectively killed it. But the debate, I mean, but you're talking about, Republican, Democrat, it does not matter. You're talking about a lot of these choices, which is it a vice? Is it not a vice? Is it medical? Is it not medical? Is it a gateway drug? Is it not a gateway drug? Can we make money off of this? Can we not make money off of this? I don't think there's one or two factors here, James. I think there's 20.
All right.
And I think the gambling debate's the same thing.
All right, Jeremy Rosenthal, I'm going to hit pause on my lawyer friend from TexasDefenseFirm.com. We'll continue talking about the possibility, the specter, what it would look like, legally speaking, in this debate over legalized gambling in Texas. And also, we're going to dig into some of these blue laws. Like, where did this come from that I can't buy alcohol? I can't buy my liquor at the liquor store on a Sunday. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Where do you stand on legal gambling in Texas? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We're continuing with my guest, Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. But I think we have another branch to our discussion here, Jeremy. Terry from Fort Worth has called in, and you're on WBAP. Your thoughts on legalized sports betting or gambling in Texas?
Well, I think one of the first things we have to get around is Texas Constitution doesn't allow gambling. So just before you can even legalize it or consider bringing it in, you have to get a constitutional amendment. And I didn't do my homework before I came to work today on this topic, but I'm sure there's a process. I just have no idea how long something like that would take or what it requires.
It's been my observation that the Texas Constitution has a bazillion amendments, and unlike the federal Constitution, which is, very limited in scope and sort of at a high level, what do we have, 26, 27 amendments there? and 10 of those were sort of part of the original deal. So really only 17 changes. Our Constitution is so weak that we have to pass amendments for a lot of things. And it's a ridiculous number. Hang on a second. Let me ask Jeremy. Jeremy Rosenthal, in the Texas state constitution, isn't there like 300, 400 amendments?
There's a bunch. And I'll tell you right now, Article 3, Section 47 of the Texas Constitution outlaws many or makes very difficult many forms of gambling, but it does not completely outlaw it. The legislature has to pass specific lotteries and gift enterprises, so the gambling has to sort of fit into that narrow vein. But we have sports betting. We have on Grand Prairie, you can bet on horses. We have a Texas lottery. So it's not against the Constitution per se. It's just very narrow. And yes, there's a lot more amendments to the Texas Constitution than the U.S. Constitution.
All right, hang on just a second. Let me check in with Terry and see if that was an acceptable answer, Jeremy. Terry in Fort Worth, how do you rate Jeremy Rosenthal's response to your call?
Well, I think it's an accurate response, but it goes to show how they're, with our Constitution, it's like instead of just giving a blanket, we're going to allow it, they're making each and every entity or type of gambling or betting jump through hoops and basically passing an amendment one at a time, depending on which one you're asking for.
Yeah, and you know what? That process feels so shady. While I'm in favor of legalized gambling, we got to do it right. I don't like this destination stuff. I don't like picking and choosing. I don't like the carve-outs like, oh, I can't gamble here. Like, I can't make a bet with Garrett, but we can go, like Jeremy said, we go to Grand Prairie and bet on the horses. So there's a little bit of duplicity in there. And look, I'll admit the ugly side. They've far more relaxed gambling laws next door in Louisiana, and I lived there for a while. And it one thing they have over there that you don't see here is if you go into like a small restaurant or if you go into a big gas station in a small town, there will be a little booth in the corner where they have gambling machines. It's kind of like slot machines, and sometimes people are in there, but the way the laws are written, it has to be shut off. There has to be a door. There has to be these 2 signs. You can't let kids in there. And you feel like, does this have to be in every small restaurant? But it's just an easy revenue source, and that's kind of the biggest downside is these ugly booths for the gaming machines. So things will be different. It will be widespread. There will be small businesses taking advantage of it. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. I'm just saying that having legal gambling, I think it's worth it.
Well, worth it or not, it's individuals' decision whether they want to go into the little dark room with the machines or
it should be,
a larger casino in various areas. It's a vote for that individual area. But right now, you have, a system of hurdles to jump through just to get a Mother May I constitutional amendment to do this kind or that kind. Like, can I have machines? Can we play cards? What are we doing? And line it out. And I've heard you talk about this before, and you say, what money is stopping us from doing this? Well, it's the time and effort and the way they force us to individually cherry pick what kind of gambling we're going to ask to be amended.
Love it. Great call. I'm going to go back to Jeremy now. Thank you, Terry. Jeremy, how come I can't buy liquor on Sundays?
You just don't know the right people, James.
Right. I got to go underground.
You need to hang out in the right circles. It depends on where you live. We've had blue laws forever in this state, and again, look, I mean, we talked about sort of the money interest, and I'll tell a quick story here. Everybody who's listening who's a Red Raider knows about what they call the Strip in Lubbock. The Strip, I believe, was on I-27, and it was right over the Lubbock County line. Lubbock was a dry county, or a moist county. I think if you could buy it at like Chili's, but all the beer stores, all the liquor stores it was like Las Vegas. And it is that you were just one. But the problem is all that money that was concentrated in that one area, and it was lit up like that. You could see it from the outer space. I am convinced that in the Great Wall of China.
The Strip. Yeah, we have that. Smith County is still a dry county. You can't buy liquor pretty much anywhere in Smith County, packaged liquor, and walk out of the store with it.
Yeah.
And so whenever you're crossing out of the county on Highway 31, there's between Tyler and Kilgore, there's a big oasis of liquor stores. If you're coming out south, as soon as you cross the county line, there's like a big Fat Dog and like 8 liquor stores. And
most of those places, though, if you look at them, are temporary because they're one pen stroke away of being out of business. And that's the money interest. To your point, forever, from what I was told, I don't know this firsthand, but all the businesses that were on the strips, they did anything and everything they could do to try to influence Lubbock County politics.
Oh, to keep it dry. Yeah, interesting stuff. Well, listen, here's the other side of me that's kind of soft on my stance on vice crimes. You know, as a libertarian, I think they should all be legal. But growing up in a dry county as I did, I think it's nice that people can choose. If you have something on the county level that is making the laws and the vice laws, then you have a chance to escape it. If you don't like to live around gambling, maybe this is something that should be decided on the county level. If you don't want to have a booth in your restaurant, but also something we don't have in Smith County is, until they relax the laws, we didn't have homeless people when I was growing up. You could go across the county line into Gregg County where Longview is, and it's not a big town, but they would still have people begging for change on the corner because they can turn around and just go buy some liquor with it. And in a dry county, there's almost zero homeless people, because if they can't get the sauce, they're not going to stick around. So there's a place in my heart for some restrictions, because I feel for you people who would prefer to live in that environment. I just prefer freedom. Jeremy Rosenthal, we're out of time. Thank you very much for your legal expertise today. Appreciate it, sir.
Can I say one last thing?
30 seconds.
Whatever the laws are, we need to make sure that lawyers can make a living. So any law that we have where somebody can get arrested and then hire a really good-looking lawyer in McKinney needs
I got it. Yeah, it'd be nice to finally see those lawyers make some money around here. Thank you, Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. Coming up next on The James Show, we're going to talk about this new pro-life, pro-choice investing. Are you interested in faith-based investing? You'll hear about it next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.